Josh Green here here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by Lucas Browne. How are we doing, Lucas? Big decision I hear made over the last 24 hours.
I'm good, mate. As you can imagine, I've been in a fight, but otherwise I'm good. Yeah, I'm actually content with the decision. I don't know how far you want me to go into it, but I can if you like. I'm happy with where I'm at.
For those that don't know, you've chosen to hang up the gloves in the last 24, 48 hours. Just Where did that decision come from? Why was now the right time?
I always had in my mind, I had about 3 fights left. That was one. So I had 2 to go. But what happened was I had the Miller fight, which was 2 fights ago. That was a great fight. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Everything was good with that fight. Then I had the Russian in Dubai. Now, I thought to myself that maybe I basically switched off and didn't switch back on. I didn't feel right in the fight. Obviously I was getting hit around where I shouldn't have been, stuff like that. So this fight was going to be me sort of coming back out. I was ready. I was fit. Everything was good. I was actually worse in the ring. Nothing was computing between my mind and my body. Nothing was sort of making sense. I didn't even think about throwing a punch. I didn't think about moving my head. I didn't think about anything. So on the way home, I drove my sons home, and then from their house to mine, I basically decided. So I thought, if I can't get in there and actually be competitive, at least, there's no point, So I'm 45. I've been doing it for 15 years now. I'm good, So I could have had 2 or 3 more fights. I could have made a little bit more money, not much, but a little bit. But it's not worth my health or anything else. So for me, in that 10-minute drive, I thought, yeah, I'm good.
How much of a big part was, you say, driving your sons home and seeing what you've got with them and what you've got with your family? How much of a big part was that in the decision?
I'll tell you what, the fact that for the first time, they're old enough now, they're 20 and 22. So they've never been to one of my fights or anything. And finally, a home venue, and they walked me out. So for me, that was pretty much the icing on the cake. I loved that. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The fight was shit, but that moment will live in my memory forever.
When you look back on your career, stepping into the professional ring with pretty much no amateur experience and doing what you've done in your professional career, starting in your 30s and retiring at 45, how do you look back on it?
Honestly, up until just recently, I've had the gym now for a year. So prior to that, I didn't have a job for 10 years. So it's been great. I've lived the life as a fighter. I've traveled the world. I've met some amazing people all around the world. I've connected through social media with so many people for so many reasons. I still get to this day, I still get people just message me just because they're depressed and or suicidal, all sorts of stuff. So it's not just, can you help me with boxing? It's not just haters. There's so many people I've connected with, and I'm so thankful for that. That will continue, I'm assuming. But it's been a great journey as a whole, yeah.
When you look back at it, what's your proudest moment in the sport?
I'd have to say the world title, but at the same time, it was also one of the darkest moments. So it was a bit of both. Now, most recently looking at it, obviously my son's walking me out. That, without a doubt, you can't buy that, you know what I mean? So recently that, without a doubt, but I'd have to say the world title.
Just explain what you mean by that being the darkest moment as well. And mentally, what position were you in then?
Because I finally won a version of the world title, and I was top of the world. I should have been celebrated. I should have been, like other people in Australia, they've been given a parade, all this sort of stuff, where unfortunately, because of the drugs scandal that came with it, I was supposed to fight Klitschko next, make a couple of $1 million and be happy as. But it was just taken away from me. And my very next fight after all that was for $5 grand. So here I was, finally at the top. I've done everything I need to do, and it was all taken away from me. So even though I was cleared, I got the belt back, etc., the damage was done, unfortunately. So yeah, for a good year and a half, I was in limbo.
How different could it have been if that didn't come up and that didn't sort of have a bit of a cloud at that time over your career?
Well, there's two ways I look at it. Obviously, you can't look back and think what if, but imagine I fought Klitschko, and not saying I would have won, but imagine I fought Klitschko. I mean, that would have changed everything. The other thing that I always think about is that I should have just moved to the UK 10 years ago. And imagine how different that would have been. I'll be driving a Bentley. You know what I mean? So, yeah, hindsight's always a crazy thing, but I am happy that I've made the decisions I have. I stayed close with my kids. I watched them grow up. Obviously, that trumps everything.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, I'm completely, utterly content with everything I've done. Things could have been done differently, but that's the past now. So it's now looking forward to the future and see what brings.
You talk about you could have moved to the UK. You had a couple of big fights over here, obviously Dillian Whyte, Dave Allen. There are a lot more that you could have had. Are there any names that were on your list that maybe you didn't get to tick off? I know you talked about Klitschko.
To be honest, no. I think it was 8 fights in total in the UK. Obviously lost to Dave Allen and Dillian Whyte. So the O2 Arena isn't my friend. But I fought all over the place. I fought in Scotland. So I've got a great track record in the UK. I think people forget that I have had many fights in the UK. But mate, it is what it is. I had the Commonwealth title over there, everything. So it was a great run, and I loved it.
For you, what does the future hold for you? You said you're still in the gym. You said just before I press record, you were in the gym 6:30 the next morning. Is that going to be the routine still?
It's a great routine to have. I think everyone should stay active no matter how you look at it. Now, saying I was in the gym for my class. So I wasn't training myself. I'm having a week off for sure. But having my own gym, I run classes all day. So that's a great thing to sort of keep my mind active, keep me out of trouble, which is great. I'm looking at a few things like some Bali trips where I take people to Bali. We train, but also see things of the experience, the Big Daddy experience. An app maybe on the phone, especially when COVID was out. An app would have been great. So that's something that at least the rest of the world can sort of still connect with myself and be involved in something that I'm doing because they're not in Perth. There are a few different avenues to look at it and sort of see, which is good. It's an exciting time, but scary at the same time.
I mean, for you, how much has the scene over in Oz changed over the time you've been professional? We're at a time now where you've got the likes of Jaya Pataya, he's fighting this weekend. Ebony Bridges has come through. Sky Nicholson, who's based over here. Tim Tszyu. The list goes on of world champions. Yeah. How much has it changed?
Obviously, through the years, we've had some amazing fighters, but I still think, in a way, it's in its infancy. Like, we're nothing compared to UK. And just straight out, if you want to be something in the world of boxing, you have to travel to either the UK, USA, something like that. There's no point sort of sitting in Australia having a 15-0 record against Australians when you go overseas and lose your first fight because it's actually quality opponents. So I think it's the biggest test to take yourself overseas, have a fight, test yourself out completely and properly against some quality opponents. So I think the Australian scene, as great as it is still very much in its infancy. But we're getting there. As you said, Jai Bataille in particular, he was my main sparring partner for my world title. So, like, he's been doing it for many years, and he's finally getting his credits.
Yeah, and he's in a rematch with Maris Bradis this weekend on the Fury Usyk undercard. How do you see it going for Jai?
Mate, considering watching the first one, I think he's got it. But this is boxing, and you never know. You can never sort of really count on anything. He's just in a really good space. He's in a great headspace in terms of believing in himself. He knows where he's at. He's extremely talented. I think he's just on fire. So there's no stopping him at the moment.
We've seen him over here against Jordan Thompson and over in Saudi against Ellis Zorro. I mean, the power that he packs and the sort of killer instinct that he has. How is he different to other fighters in the division, do you believe?
Well, he's been doing it for so long. His father, I love his father, Taps. I've known him for many years. As I said, he's always been around the big boys as well. So, yes, he's a true cruiserweight, but he's always been around the heavy as well. So I was, 115, 1 to 120, and he was sparring me. So he's always been around and sparred big boys, had to deal with the big boys. So to deal with people his own weight would be a welcome change for him, I'd say. Yes, they are a bit faster, but in terms of the power they pack and stuff like that, he's used to that, and he's been doing it for many years. So I think he's just come into himself perfectly, and you can see the results.
And on Fury Usyk, a fight we've waited for a long time, the undisputed championship, first time in 25 years. How do you analyse it? A man that's been at the top of the game.
I've sparred Tyson Fury the once, and he's just so crafty for a 6'9" guy. Like the length and everything else, he fights like he's 6 foot, which is great. But then again, you watch someone like a Lomachenko over the weekend, and Usyk is basically a big version of him. So being a lefty as well, but just the footwork, the style, I think it's Lomachenko. Sorry, Lomachenko. I think it's the Usyk fight. I think Usyk can well and truly win it. It depends on how Tyson Fury sort of stifles him, whether he hugs him, leans on him, all that sort of stuff. It depends on the refereeing, how much he sort of lets go. But I think if Usyk's allowed to move, Usyk wins by decision.
Is it for Tyson as simple as using his size, his reach, and his weight, all big advantages?
Pretty much, like much sort of similar to what he did with Deontay Wilder. Wilder had the punch, it has a punch like you wouldn't believe, and it's just about stifling that, knowing what's coming and knowing how to sort of react to it. So it would be to stop Usyk, you got to tire him out, you got to sort of lean on him, you got to make him feel that weight, stuff like that. So if he does that, I think it might go Tyson Fury way. But if the ref doesn't let it happen, Usyk.
People have said that Usyk is vulnerable to body shots. We saw that with Daniel Dubois. We saw that earlier in his career as well. Is that something that if you were in Tyson's shoes, you'd be looking to target?
100%. I think the two things that are sort of left out a lot in the teaching in boxing is the beauty of a jab for starters, but the body. Yeah, you may not be dropping them, but you are sort of draining them of energy, and it does take it out of you eventually. So I think the beauty of a body shot is very underrated.
So what's the Big Daddy Lucas Browne official prediction for Saturday night?
Usyk by decision.
Usyk decision.
I'll cop some hate for that for sure.
Final thing from me. Yesterday we saw Big John Fury getting involved. He headbutted one of Team Usyk. Did you see that?
I saw that, and Tyson just laughed and thought it was funny. Which, as a son, I suppose it was, but like that's assault. You know, like I don't understand how people can get away with things like that when someone not of that caliber would be arrested. You know what I mean? It's not smart. Do it on camera. I don't care if you do it, but you don't do it on camera.
Yeah, it was certainly something to see. Well, Lucas, I really appreciate you chatting about your big decision and everything coming up this weekend. I wish you the best of luck in everything going forwards.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.